Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. 300 warships slid between the asteroids with weapons charged. 12 smaller hulls broke apart instead of forming a line, vanishing behind tumbling rock while 6 bright targeting marks locked onto the smallest vessel. The deck shook under the captain's boots. A warning tone counted down the seconds until the pursuers cleared the next asteroid, and every number sounded too fast. Years later, Sarah Chen would remember that vibration better than any speech made after the battle. 7 months earlier, Captain Chen had commanded the exploration vessel Endeavour when it dropped from hyperspace beside a red star and found 2 enormous fleets firing across open space. At first, the battle looked terrifying, then it looked strange. The Andorian Empire and the Zapirian Coalition had placed their ships in rigid opposing rows. Blue and red energy fire crossed the gap. A damaged cruiser withdrew, another moved neatly into its place. No ship climbed above the enemy, none tried to circle behind. They simply traded destruction. Chen ordered a peaceful first contact broadcast. Both fleets stopped shooting. Every weapon turned toward Endeavour. "Full thrust, break contact," Chen said. The little human ship ran. Alien beams snapped past close enough to scramble sensors, and both ancient enemies chased together until Endeavour escaped into hyperspace. Back at Earth, Chen replayed the encounter for Admiral Marcus Rodriguez and General Liu. The tactical computer confirmed what her eyes had seen. No feints, no flanking attacks, no reserves, no use of nearby terrain. Rodriguez stared at the frozen formation. "They can cross stars," he said, "but they're fighting as if space were a narrow road." Human probes spent months watching more engagements. The pattern never changed. The 2 powers had fought for 2 centuries, yet their commanders treated battle as a formal contest. They announced attacks. They paused for resupply. Young officers who suggested ambushes were dismissed as dishonorable. The casualty ledgers were worse. Systems had been stripped for replacement hulls. Generations of crews had died without moving the front far enough to matter. Neither empire lacked power. What neither seemed able to imagine was an opponent behaving outside the ritual. Earth could not match their shields or energy weapons. Rodriguez believed it did not need to. The next human message went to both sides. A neutral asteroid became the meeting place. Chen stood beside Rodriguez and Liu while Admiral Kethfor of the Andorians and Zara 9, commanding for the Zapirians, faced them across a temporary metal table. Kethvor's 4 eyes narrowed. "Your ships are primitive. Why should either of us accept military advice from you?" Rodriguez touched the control pad. A hologram of the endless battle lines appeared above the table. "Because your weapons improve," he said, "and your results don't." Zara 9 stiffened. "Our methods preserve discipline." Liu pointed to the 2 straight formations. "They preserve the enemy too." The room went quiet. Chen watched both alien commanders study the display. Their fleets had spent generations measuring honor by endurance. Humans were asking a more uncomfortable question. What if endurance was the reason the war never ended? Rodriguez offered a demonstration. 1 human destroyer, Defiant, entered an empty system against 3 alien cruisers. The observers expected Captain Martinez to pick a target and exchange fire. Defiant fled toward an asteroid field. An Andorian officer gave a short laugh. "Your captain has abandoned the engagement." Chen kept her eyes on the display. "Watch where the pursuit goes." The 3 cruisers followed. Their perfect formation widened around the rocks. Then concealed missile pods placed before the exercise fired from multiple directions. 1 cruiser lost propulsion. Another spun away with simulated damage across its shield grid. The 3rd emerged alone and found Defiant waiting where the asteroids narrowed its approach. The exercise ended with all 3 cruisers disabled. Kethfor rose so quickly his chair scraped the floor. "You prepared the battlefield before they arrived." Martinez answered over the speaker. "I prepared for the fight I wanted, not the fight they expected." "That is deception," Zara 9 said. Rodriguez folded his hands. "It is also 3 crews going home alive in a real engagement." The aliens accepted human advisors, but tradition held harder than anyone expected. At the first joint test, Leyu urged Kethfor to send a small force around an asteroid field. Rodriguez advised Zara 9 to hide ships behind a moon. Both commanders refused. Their fleets met openly, exactly as they always had. 4 hours later, 12 ships were gone, and thousands of crew members were dead. Leyu stood on Kethfor's bridge, while casualty numbers crawled down a display. "You protected the rule," he said. "You did not protect the people following it." Kethfor did not answer. One blue hand remained closed around the edge of the console until his knuckles darkened. A month later, both commanders allowed one change. In the Vega system, 6 Andorian ships vanished behind a gas giant while the main force advanced. On the opposite side, 3 Zapirian vessels waited inside the shadow of an asteroid. The normal exchange began. Then the Andorian flankers struck. 3 Zapirian ships were disabled before their crews understood where the fire had come from. Kethfor leaned toward the display, astonishment spreading across all 4 eyes. A warning tone cut through the bridge. Zara 9's concealed vessels burst from cover behind the Andorian line and hammered engines and command sections. The formation folded inward. Orders collided. Ships that had been trained to face one threat suddenly had 2. The battle ended in 90 minutes. No one could call it a familiar stalemate. The coalition held the system, but both sides had proved that doctrine could be broken. Kethfor replayed the flanking strike twice. "Our maneuver worked, then their ambush worked against us." Leyu nodded, "Because they were learning while you were learning." Across the system, Zara 9 watched damage control crews seal a ruptured compartment. "We won by hiding ships," she said, as if the words tasted wrong. Rodriguez shook his head. "You won because you stopped asking what a proper battle should look like." For the first time, neither commander argued about honor. Young officers changed first. They hid behind moons, split forces, used false retreats, concentrated fire, and adapted while fighting. Battles that once consumed days ended in hours. Old commanders protested, then quietly copied whatever kept their crews alive. 6 months later, the lesson came back to Earth. A combined Andorian-Zapirian armada entered the Sol system with more than 300 warships. Kethfor and Zara 9 broadcast their challenge, 12 human ships against the combined fleet. If humanity proved its methods, the old war would end. If humanity failed, Earth would withdraw from galactic affairs. Rodriguez accepted. Now Chen drove Endeavor through the asteroid belt, with 6 cruisers hunting her. She opened a channel. "Andorian squadron, I'll make you an offer. Give me 10 minutes. If I cannot disable your formation without killing a crew, I surrender my ship to your exercise control." The lead cruiser hesitated. "Why spare us when you need every advantage?" "Because victory is useless if all it leaves me is wreckage." Elsewhere, Martinez challenged Zapirian ships to controlled duels. Other human captains bargained for corridors, exchanged tactical information, or split enemy groups with promises none of the aliens had prepared to evaluate in the middle of combat. Zara 9 studied the tactical board until her silver face tightened. "Show me their center." An officer searched the display. "They don't have one." Yet the 12 human ships were sharing sensor data constantly. No vessel held a fixed position. One captain changed course, another altered fire, and a third opened a new channel before the aliens could settle on a response. Then a damaged Zapirian vessel drifted toward a tumbling asteroid. Captain Torres saw it first. His destroyer Vanguard was too far away to tow the alien ship clear. There was no time to calculate a clean solution. Torres turned hard, drove Vanguard between the cruiser and the rock, and fired his engines at full thrust. Metal struck stone. Vanguard broke open along one side, but the impact changed the asteroid's path enough for the Zapirian cruiser to escape. Escape pods scattered from the human destroyer. The Zapirian captain's voice came across the common channel, shaken. "You destroyed your own ship to save mine." Torres answered from a pod. "I wrecked a ship, I saved 2 crews." Weapons fire faded around them. A Zapirian rescue craft moved first. An Andorian escort covered it. Human pods flashed their beacons between the 2 fleets, while ships from 3 species crowded the same patch of space without shooting. Chen looked at her display. Red hostile markers were changing to neutral one by one. Kethfor's flagship came nose to nose with Rodriguez's Yorktown. "We came to measure your skill," Kethfor said. His voice had lost its old contempt. "You turned the test into a rescue." Rodriguez stood with both hands behind his back. "You learned every trick we showed you," he replied. "So we had to show you the part that was never a trick." Zara 9 joined the channel. "And what part is that?" Rodriguez looked toward the blinking escape pods. "Knowing what the battle is for before you decide how to win it." No one ordered a ceasefire. No one needed to. The last targeting beam disappeared from Chen's screen. 3 hours later, the challenge ended formally. Soon after, representatives of the Andorian Empire and Zapirian Coalition signed a peace agreement at Luna Station. Their 200-year war stopped, and the former enemies committed ships and crews to rebuilding the systems they had spent generations damaging. Human war colleges opened their doors to alien officers. Chen eventually stood before mixed classes at Mars, where arguments about tactics became arguments about responsibility. Years passed. Admiral Rodriguez grew old, so did General Leyu. One day they stood together behind the broad viewing glass of a galactic defense station above Earth. Leyu rested both hands on the rail. "Do you still think teaching them was the right choice?" Rodriguez did not answer. Below the glass, an Andorian cruiser eased away from its berth. A Zapirian escort matched its speed. The docking clamps released one after another, and both ships turned toward the same open lane.